Hamilton Baiden into the studio with us. He is the CEO of Youturn Health. You know, I want to just tell our audience, I mean, this show is all about brutal honesty. We're trying to bring segments that can help people, whatever touches them to advance their lives. And I actually caught a Facebook post. Your beautiful wife made this Facebook post about the fact that you had been sober for how many years?
10 years.
10 years, and she was just talking about how proud she is of you. And so I reached out to say, why don't you come in and tell a little bit about your sobriety journey and what you're doing today.
Yeah, happy to do it. You know, a lot of people are very quiet about their journey. I am anything but quiet, which is why I don't have a voice anymore. You know, I struggled many years with behavioral health. As a kid, I was diagnosed with ADD, hyperactivity, which you'll figure out very quickly because I have a lot of energy. And as I grew up through the ranks in healthcare, stress, anxiety, the whole 9 yards. And 10 years ago, I woke up one morning, my wife looked at me and she said, I'm done. She goes, I love you, but I'm not in love with you anymore. And immediately I go, I'll quit. That was the biggest lie in the world. Immediately in my head was like, all right, how the hell can I get myself out of this? How can I manipulate my way out? And I called a good buddy of mine who had gone to treatment, and he looked at me and he said, you got to get on a plane tonight. And that's what I did. I flew across the country, went to treatment, never touched another drink again. But what I've learned through this journey is that's not the only way. Recovery is an individual thing. It's you know, Brandon kind of talked about it. For 70 years, we've kind of dictated to people, this is what recovery looks like. And in my opinion, that's why only 10% of people get help.
Okay, before we go into, we want to hear about your company and everything, but I'm just curious when you got to that breaking point, because a lot of people, I think, try to gauge, you know, how bad is it getting? You know, and there's a lot of ways you can convince yourself that, hey, this is manageable. I'm a successful guy. I run a company. You know, I'm checking all these boxes. So just for folks who are watching and listening, can you kind of describe, like, what were your daily habits? And how, when you just say you were getting out of control, what do you mean by that?
Well, it's interesting because everything that you just said, I went through. I'll throw one out to people that you'll find very interesting. I kept a spreadsheet on how much I was allowed to drink. A normal drinker doesn't have to keep a spreadsheet. That's pretty much an obvious sign right there. But I went through everything. I mean, and the other thing you have to understand is all people that struggle are different. I had a buddy that got up every morning, he dropped his kids off and he went straight to Circle K and got a bottle of Crown Royal, drank it all day long. I was not one of those. I went to work every day. I showed up everywhere I was supposed to go. I was very successful. When I came home at night, we would open up a bottle of wine and I just would not stop. It didn't matter, would not stop. And then once a week, once every 2 weeks, I would just go off the chain.
You were a binge.
I was a binge drinker. But I went through it. I mean, I went through all of those things. And I always say, if I had woken up that morning and my wife had handed me 4 Advil and say, I love you, honey, I'm sorry you have a headache, I wouldn't have gone to treatment. No way in hell would have I gone to treatment. It's a journey. And sometimes it takes certain things to get people there. But we think there's a different way. We don't think everyone has to hit bottom like I did and then go away to treatment for 6 weeks.
Agreed. And I think we need to start looking at addiction and recovery as not black and white, right? And that there's
100%.
not one program that we can apply to everybody who has substance use disorder issues.
That's exactly
and the
right.
reason being that if it is a disease, and I'll be a believer of that, fine, but there's a spectrum to every disease, just like there's a spectrum to autism, right? Even in the books of the 12-step program, they say some are sicker than others. So even back in the 30s, they realized that there is a spectrum even then. And if somebody is a 10 on an extreme level, you can't take that same program and apply it to somebody who's at a 2 or a 3.
No.
And I think that finally we're getting to this point that we're understanding that addiction is not a moral failing. It is not at all. It is trauma-based.
So Hamilton, can you tell us about Youturn Health and what you're doing there?
Yeah, and I talked to Brandon a little bit earlier about this. Youturn Health is a very different look at this. In order to explain Youturn Health, you got to understand some of the statistics. SAMHSA, that's the governing body of substance use disorder in this country, says about 46% of Americans either struggle or have a loved one. And the loved one is really important to us. What most people don't realize is 26% of American workers claim they go home to addiction. So these are people that aren't struggling themselves, but they're going home to a parent, a spouse, or a child that struggles. So we have this huge group of people that are struggling. What percentage of people get help? Brandon knows, 10%. 10% raise their hand, walk down the hall to HR and go, I have a problem, I need help. We're not helping the bigger group. We need to get to the 90%. Long story short, Youturn Health was built to get to those 90%, get them started in a harm reduction manner. Bottom line is we treat people as human beings first. If we treat you as a human and we get you engaged and we take as much responsibility for getting you better as you take yourself, we will get you better. So we have a learning management system called Youturn. The best way to think of it is Netflix for behavioral health. It's over 450 videos. It's actually the largest collection of counselor-led videos in the country on behavioral health. Really feel good. We don't use words like alcoholic and addicts. It's very much to drive people there, to learn, to get educated, to get hope and advice from the stories of others. What people don't realize is 46% of people that struggle with substance misuse, which is the beginning stages, they correct on their own. When they get educated and they start to learn and get hope and advice, they change their behavior. They don't have to hit bottom. So that really gets people started. And then we have an evidence-based peer coaching program. And what we believe is you need to take someone with lived experience, whether it's Brandon, whether it's me, whether it's a family member, and they need to take as much responsibility as you to move you forward in this journey.
And I just have to ask you, just as we wrap things up, what surprised you most on your journey?
That I didn't become this stick in the mud loser like I thought all alcoholics were. I mean, I hate to say that, but like that was the stigma. I went to AA meetings before I got sober, and I'm like, these people are nothing like me. I hate this. I'm not an alcoholic. And I'll tell you what surprised my wife more than anything. The challenge for us is when I tried not to drink. That's when I was miserable. So she expected me to come home from rehab, this miserable, angry person. And I came home just as crazy, just as obnoxious, just as vivacious as I was. And my life is a million times better than it ever was, without question. And my marriage is a million times better than it ever was.
We appreciate you being here today.
Oh my God,
Flying in for the segment. I know you're on baby watch, so we appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Really important information.
Well, more importantly, thank you guys for talking about this.
Always.
It's a big deal, and people need to hear it. So thank you.